Welcome to the Unwritten Podcast with your host, Thomas Malpass, where we are on a mission to help the world find more purpose, passion, and peace in their everyday lives. Through deep conversations and connection, tune in because we are all on this journey of life together. Can you take us back and share some experiences growing up on your journey of discovering yourself and who you are today?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Some experiences one of the first experiences I had to go back and recognize in developing myself today was that I was mainly raised by my grandparents. So I got a younger sister. She's 2 years younger than me. And when she was born, she was born healthy, but the doctors messed up in the hospital and they made some complications for my family. My sister specifically. My parents, less than 30 years old, they didn't know what to do. My dad was still working. My mom was trying to take care of this kid who the doctor said wouldn't be living past her first year. And so I got sent to go stay with my grandparents. And that was one of the first experiences that I had to kind of rediscover on my end in order to develop who I am today. Basically, that creates a idea of rejection, and when you feel rejected from your family, it's not a good mindset to be coming from. Fast forward a few years after that, I find a sport, athletics, exercise that is super helpful for me, wrestling. So I started wrestling when I was 7 years old, and was able to kind of express myself in that realm because I didn't have another way of expressing myself. And when I hit about 14, the teenage years, a lot of the memories that we kind of hold in our subconscious that our brain uses to protect us, they start flooding back. And that's when I didn't understand whether the issue was with me or with things going on. And that's when I started to explore substances as the outlet. So those are three experiences that happened when I was growing up. Kind of led into me developing.
So you said first something happened to your sister. Was it like a life-threatening thing?
Yeah, it was a life-threatening thing. They said that she wouldn't live past 1 year. Somebody messed up when they were...
Oh, she was a baby.
She was a baby.
Oh, wow. And did she survive? Or?
Yeah, she just survived. She's 30... Shoot, I'm 34, so she's 32. She'll be 32 this year. She got a couple kids, married, happy as can be.
But that was like a very memorable moment in your life, and especially as like a young kid, looking back at, you don't even know what was going on. You're like confused, right? And then your parents are also, I mean, like I'm about to be 30 this year, so I could only imagine if I had a newborn baby with a life-threatening disease or something. It'd be tough to express and to figure it out. And then you said when you were 14, you remembered that? Is that what happened? You remembered like that moment, or what do you think caused you to explore different avenues of whatever mental coping you were going through? What do you think caused that?
What I think caused it was the inability to process it. Didn't have proper coping mechanisms. Didn't have proper ways of communicating what was going on inside of my head. So that's what caused me to explore those different avenues for making my brain not hurt, basically.
Because you were hurt, or what was hurting you?
Oh, absolutely.
Like
my brain was hurting me all the time. Like my thoughts, there was always all these thoughts going on in my head. Like why, the question of why, the question of how come, that real victim mentality, as people like to call it.
Oh, yeah.
Like all these things are happening to me instead of looking at it as these things are happening for me. And
for me,
because of that mindset, that's where I was just like, well, the people around me use substances, so let's see. If it makes them feel better, why wouldn't it make me feel better? And then when I started to use them, I was like, oh, my thoughts started to slow down. They started to stop driving me crazy all the time.
Because your thoughts were driving you crazy?
Yeah.
And then that led to so this was all because of, like, did you blame it on anything? Or was it just, you just had that, like, mindset, that victim mindset? Or was there, like, a pivotal cause for why you were in that mindset? Or you just were always like that victim mindset, or what?
Yeah, so growing up, I didn't see it as there was a benefit to it. Growing up, it was that pure victim mindset. Everything's happening to me.
Like, no matter what it was, just you automatically was like, why me type.
Oh, exactly. And that, that could also become from I grew up in a very religious household. And religion, the form of religion that I grew up in was bad things happen to bad people. So if bad things were happening, then, put two and two together, that means you're a bad person.
Yeah. It's like, just because you're bad, good things can't happen to you either. It's like it's a very one-track minded way of thinking.
Absolutely.
So then, after your teen years, what was the moment where, I wanted to know when was the turning point for both the beginning of your addiction to the end of your addiction? And we could start with the beginning.
The turning point to the beginning of my addiction was that it's a solution. I think a lot of people don't understand that portion of it. Addiction, there's all kinds of addictions. For me, it was substances, but that's a solution that we've come up with in our heads. We have some sort of pain, and we know how to solve that pain by ingesting, injecting, inhaling, eating, spending.
Yeah.
That's the solution.
Whatever
the addiction is, that's the solution. So for me, the thought process was, well, if I feel this way and I use this substance, then that's where it started. So I started to become addicted because I love that solution. I could solve all of my problems for temporarily short amounts of time by using substances. So that's where it started. Wait until the weekends. And on the weekends, I'd find some time to be alone, and that's when I'd get high. And that's juvenile stuff, right? Like smoking cannabis.
This was when you were still in your teens?
Yeah, early teens. Moving to my later teens,
okay.
Now it's popping pills and just saying that
I'm
tired. So that is the second portion of it, right? When one substance or one solution isn't enough, you start looking for other solutions. And they're within the same vein. If it's not cannabis, then it's pills. If it's not pills, then it's smoking some heroin. If it's not smoking some heroin, then it's injecting heroin. If it's not injecting heroin, then this doesn't solve all my problems all the time. And that leads into your second question. What's the pivotal moment that gets you out of it? Pivotal moment for me was that the amount of time that I spent to use drugs, to even get the drugs, took me like 6 hours at the end of my addiction to get the drugs, find some time to get high on my own, and then I'd only be high for maybe 15, 20 minutes. So the return on what I was exchanging wasn't beneficial. Like, it was no longer that I was escaping for a long time.
It would take longer to the process of getting the drugs than you would be high. See, that's a perfect example of, I don't know if you've read Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's a phenomenal book, but he says whenever you have an addiction, a great way to break that addiction is to put friction between the addiction and you getting that addiction. So it was like there was like a natural friction between you going out, taking forever to go get your drugs. That was a friction, and that slowly was like, this friction isn't worth it. And I think that's a lot harder for alcoholism, which I don't have to deal with it personally, but my ex is still struggling with alcoholism, and it's a lot harder for that because I remember every time we drive past a corner store, every time we drive past a gas station, it's like that. She gets triggered, like, oh, like, can we stop there real quick, like get a tall boy or whatever. It's a lot harder with that to include friction. You have to, it really takes willpower at that point to be like, no, let's not stop. Let's,
Well, yeah, you reference Atomic Habits, right? I believe he says trigger, response, reward. So she got triggered, or they got triggered. There was a response to how to get that reward, and that's what you have to replace, is the reward system. Because as you fast forward, I stopped using heroin, but I started drinking because it's a legal drug. No one's going to question
it. Yeah, it's easier, and it's easier to get.
Get it anywhere. And where I live, you could start getting it at 7 o'clock in the morning, and you can get it all the way till 12 o'clock at night. So that's a big window of time.
Oh, wow. Wait, where are you?
In Mexico.
I'm in Texas, and I think for us it's like 10 or 11 a.m.
They start selling at 7 in the morning.
There's a slight buffer.
Yeah. 12 hours, right?
A little bit.
12 hours. But yeah, that reward system needs to be adjusted, because that's what our brain is training it to do. I'm triggered. I have this response. My solution to that response is get drunk or have a drink, and that's my reward. But that reward is what's actually killing us. So that reward needs to be changed. The response to the trigger is always going to be there. I still drive by places I used to get high, and my brain goes to, oh yeah, you remember when you got high there?
You get triggered, yeah.
So the triggers are always going to be there. You can't really stop those. That's why most people try to leave the place they're at, but our mental triggers are what's happening. You'll get a scent. You'll get...
Yeah, it's within. It's not external, it's within.
Absolutely. And having that understanding of, okay, here's my trigger. For me, it's still like I see family things, right? I'll see a couple out doing something, and I'll get triggered. Like, well, my brain goes into that victim mindset, and it says, well, why aren't you in a relationship right now? And then it starts going through all the other stuff, right? That's the normal response. Well, what's the reward? The reward is, well, you know what? You gotta love yourself enough to be able to love someone, let someone love you. So the triggers are always there.
Yeah.
The response is how we respond to it.
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah. No, I was just agreeing with the relationship thing. Like, with relationships, you have to both be full overflowing glasses. When you're both full overflowing glasses within yourself, you have more to give, opposed to somebody who their glasses barely has drips in it.
Oh yeah, because then they're always trying to suck out the stuff from you to fill up their glass.
Oh yeah. And then it just gets into draining, and
if you're not full yourself and you're always trying to fill someone else who's never going to be full, then
you start draining. It
just goes from one place to another. I mean, it's the same analogy for people with money problems, right? Like, they have one thing that drains out all their money, and then they go to a job or they go to some sort of way to make money.
That's what happened to me, man. That's literally what happened to me financially. Like, before me and my ex met, I was like good, and then fast forward 5 years, it's like so much debt and all this crap. It's like, man, I was good. I was better by myself.
Right. And that's
But
that's like the way that I best learned with Thomas was you got to take care of your 50% of the relationship. I can give my full 50%, but if the other person doesn't give me their 50%, then it's difficult to make a 100% relationship because all I have control over is me, no matter how much I love them. Like if they're not taking care of themselves, practicing self-care, then they're not committing to their 50%. So how?
Yeah, that just goes into that the partnership, because it's a partnership. If you're not like doing the things that your partner does to be happy or fulfilled or whatever to make the relationship work, then that's that 50% you're talking about, right?
Exactly.
You have to meet. That's with any relationship. You have to meet the person there. It can't always be one-sided, because then when it's just one-sided, it's not a relationship.
There's a power dynamic at that point.
Right? Yeah, it's not. So I agree with that. So what you were talking about, the trigger response solution. So how long were you dealing with this issue?
So overall, from age 14 to 27, so 13 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I was on some sort of substance, replacing, escaping, numbing with something. And my two favorites were heroin, opiates, and alcohol.
That's crazy.
Those are my two favorite ones. And what I've learned, because I work with people now who are in addiction, is that individuals like me, whose brain just works fast all the time, it's helpful.
Like addicted personality.
Well, no, just like a fast-paced mentality, like going from one thing to the next to the next.
Okay.
Mindset.
Yeah.
Antidepressants are our drug of choice because it slows it down, and that's helpful.
To slow you down, yeah.
For individuals who work at a slower pace, naturally.
That's me.
The like cocaine, the methamphetamines, those are the ones that they get hooked on.
Oh, I never got into that either.
It makes their brain go way faster. And so I've just learned that from working with individuals with different addictions. Their natural pace of mindset usually directs, when the substance comes into place, it directs what substance they like more.
A big thing for me to help discard me from, I don't know what the word is, but a big thing that helps me with preventing me from doing drugs is how will I feel after. I think like, okay, I could get like plastered this weekend just because I have the time, but then I think, how long will it take me to recover? Because the older you get, the longer it takes you to recover. And then what else did I want to get accomplished besides that this weekend? And like, how am I going to feel? I'm going to feel like crap because I'm trying to recover. It takes me like 2-3 days just to get back to 100% after drinking a lot. Well, even just like 2 weeks ago, I had 2 drinks. And the next day I felt like crap. Literally, like I had 2 drinks and I felt like crap and I threw up. Just from 2 drinks. So it's like my body's telling me like no, like no, like get this out of your system, like no. And sometimes you just have to start listening to your body. So that's a big thing that helps me personally. Like if I have a stress response trigger to be like, oh, let me just go get a drink, I think like, no, what do I have to get accomplished that's meaningful to me? And then also, like, is it worth it? Is it worth feeling like crap afterwards, even though you get this temporary whatever boost? It's not worth it afterwards.
Yeah, and kudos to that, because that means that you're like long-term thinking, right? For me, I wasn't. It was just, I need that immediate I don't care about.
And that's it.
I don't care about the long term.
Yeah.
I need that immediate relief right now. So whatever's gonna give me that is gonna give me that, and that's how my brain works. Is that So what? Who knows if I'm gonna even make it through the night? Let's just keep on going.
Yeah.
And that's the mindset.
Like, who cares type. Yeah.
It's that.
So at 27, what happened at 27 that made you want to finally call it?
A couple things. My 27th, or prior to my 27th birthday, my old man, my father, he had kicked me out of his house because I was drinking too much. I wasn't helping out, so I was living in this building that my grandma used to own, and it didn't have anything but electricity in it. And so it had a mat, I had a plug-in hot plate, and I had a TV. But I was still drinking on a constant basis. I was working at the time at a call center, so I'd go to the gym, shower, and I'd go to work, right? My mom and my sister, they both didn't want anything to do with me just because I was over drinking all the time. So all of them had kind of rejected me. The friends that I had no longer wanted to be around me because I was just another alcoholic to them. And so I really by myself at 27 years old. The girl that I was seeing at the time, she was just using me. So I felt even more isolated.
That's the worst.
Used, right?
Yeah.
On my 27th birthday, I was like, screw this, I'm gonna get trashed. So I walked down to the corner store, I bought some liquor. I got hammered at like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. So I crashed out.
Oh, man.
Till about like 2. And I was sleeping on this cot inside of this house. I was real paranoid because a lot of the things that I had done weren't good in the past. So I always kept a gun on me. And I remember very vividly, talking to my mom and my sister like earlier that week, and they said they wanted to meet up for my birthday. I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Well, I spaced out what time. So apparently my sister comes to the building because they knew where I was staying at. And she walks in and she sees me passed out, no shirt, just my shorts on this cot with my gun in one hand and the bottle in the other hand. And I guess I freaked her out. So she called my mom and asked my mom, where are you at? And my mom, it's like, oh, I'm right around the corner or something like that. My mom comes in and that's what they tell me. What I remember, though, is I got drunk off my ass. Sorry for cussing, but I got hammered and I blacked out.
Sorry.
And I just paranoid, made sure I had my gun with me, made sure I had my bottle with me. And I wake up to my mom putting her hand on my hand, and that hand had the gun on it. She said, son, I need you to wake up. And I woke up and I could just see my mom's eyes, like she was scared. And I look over and my sister's standing in the doorway and she's absolutely frightened. And for me, the way that I grew up is like, you don't ever scare women or children. Like, that's off limits. Other men, that's no big deal. But women and children, you just don't mess with. And so to see them completely scared of me, and I had just woken up, like I didn't do anything to be scary. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't being an aggressor in any way. I just woke up. For me, that was crappy. And my mom, she tells me, son, you're not in a good place, but we still want to celebrate you because we don't know how many more birthdays you're going to have with us. And that hit home. I was like, holy cow. The amount of people that I had seen die already from some of the stuff that we did together, it was just a reality check. Like, she's right. You don't know how many more birthdays you're going to have. You don't know how many more time you're going
to... At this point, you were still, like, kind of tipsy, out of it.
Out of it, groggy. Yeah. I'm starting to, like, realize all this stuff.
But that hit deep when they were both there.
Yeah, and both scared. And so she tells me, we're going to wait in the car. Why don't you put on a shirt, change your clothes, wash your face, and be outside. And I remember we went to go get some tacos. We just had a small little meal. And it was just like quiet time. And I was just doing a lot of self-reflecting because I was like, man, you really are a POS if you are waking up and people are scared of you. And you're a POS to have to conduct yourself in a way that your mom and your sister are both frightened of you. Like, that's what losers do. And if you want to keep on being a loser, go ahead. And so without anybody around me, Thomas, without any like friends, true friends, without any true family members, without anything like that, I was just like, well, what's the opposite of what I'm doing right now? And the opposite of what I was doing was get completely sober. So I was like, oh, let's give it a shot. Let's see what happens. And I was drinking 2 bottles a day at that time. So to go cold turkey was dangerous. I got hospitalized.
The withdrawal.
Yeah, I got hospitalized a couple weeks after that because I was just like, I'm just not going to drink. Willpowered it out, white-knuckled. Heck no, I had seizures. Woke up in the hospital.
Your body is,
it's dependent on it. And so...
No, I still deal with this with my ex because we had kids together and we still have to communicate. So it's like she's still every month. Like, I give it to her because she's trying to get better, but it's like every month she's in the ER for detox for like 4 days. She's there right now. Literally, right now she's in the ER for detox after, because it's like a cycle for her. She'll go to detox, and then as soon as she gets out, she will slow down. She'll maybe have just a couple seltzers, but then it like builds back up, and then like by the time 2 weeks is done, she'll be on a bender and then have to go right back. So it's tough, man.
Yeah, give you kudos for that, for having to still communicate and do it in a positive way, right? Because I'm sure that you still care about her. Might not be love, but there's still some sort of care there.
Yeah.
The mother of your kid or kids.
Mm-hmm.
So, man. Yeah.
It's rough.
I can't imagine that side of it, right? Like, you're talking from, when you say stuff like that, I think about like how my family probably would have felt. The people who loved me probably were feeling, right? That there was plenty of times.
Yeah.
Just like, Nico, what the hell's wrong with you? You didn't drink for 2 weeks. That's awesome. How come you couldn't keep it up?
Yeah.
To them, it's difficult to understand. But on my end, it's like, well, no, I did 2 weeks, and that 2 weeks was so stressful that I needed to relieve my stress. I don't have another way of doing it. This is the only solution that I've come up with. And because it's the only solution that I've come up with, I'm going to use it. And so, yeah, man, I give you kudos for dealing with that.
Yeah. I mean, like, for me, it's just like, I do still, like, when I love somebody, I always love them. Because it takes me, it took me like 2 years just to say I love you to her. Like, I don't just hand out I love yous. And, like, I still love her, and I wish her the best, and I wish her to be happy, healthy, and healed of this disease. Because she is the mother to our twins. We have twins, and I don't, like, it's just not good for my daughters to see that all the time either. And I wanted to do it for herself and like her daughters, you know. But I still care about her, love her, but you know, there comes a point in a relationship where it's like you have to, because it was like my glass was full and it was starting to be depleted because of, I don't want to like blame somebody, but I'm just being honest, it was being depleted because of the circumstances that we were dealing with. And at some point you have to start taking care of yourself more than trying to hold a relationship together.
Absolutely. Self-care happens in so many different ways, and I think because of the society that we live in now, it's a underrated thing. There's so many different stimulants out there that can direct you away from taking care of yourself.
No, yeah, I do think it is underrated today, or people today see it as like, I don't know what you want to call it, like woo-woo, like gurus. Like, who is this guy trying to tell me how to live my life? Especially on social media, it's like you don't know who to trust or follow or listen to. And most people are on social media anyway, just for what's it called? A time passage, whatever you want to call it. Passage of time. Like, oh, I have like 5 minutes to spare. Let me just like scroll on social media for some whatever.
Yeah. It's quick dopamine hits is what it is. And for the most part, most people on social media are comparing themselves, and they're looking for that individual that can tell them, oh, your life is worse than mine, so I feel better about myself. It's like reality TV, right? People like reality TV because...
Man, to me... Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, because it's like you could point out somebody who's doing worse than you or how you're doing better than someone else, and that's what makes you feel better, which isn't self-care, which isn't healthy.
To me, that's the worst way. That's the... Well, not worst. That's the best way for me to get discouraged. Is when I see somebody maybe in my profession, or... Because I do real estate part-time as well, and when I see somebody like killing it in sales, or like they portray this portrayal of like success, and it's like, to me, that comparison is like, it is true, comparison is the thief of joy, because then you look at it and then you compare yourself to where you are, and you're like, I'm not there. So it's like, my mindset is like, I'm not there, so why even bother? So like, I don't even like to go on social media too much. If I do, I usually do it for a reason. I go on social media to get inspiration for my own content. Like, okay, why did this go viral? Maybe I could do something like that and incorporate it in my content. So I use it as inspiration, but it's a quick way to get discouraged when you start to compare yourself.
Absolutely. And the crazy part about being in a society that has so much of this stuff going on is that you can use it for one way or another, right? Like, you use it for inspiration. Some people don't. They use it for other things. Other people use it to get attention. Like, other people are out there seeking community, and that's the only place that they can find community is online. Other people are seeking relationships, and the only way they know how to build relationships is by a keyboard and being able to check out whenever they want to, because they don't want to have to deal when life actually happens, you know, because there is a point where someone else's cup does get a little bit empty. And if you are in a relationship with them, you got to pour into it at that point, right? Until they can fill themselves back up. Like, that's part of a relationship too. But individuals are so selfish that they just want to, oh no, I just want this part of the relationship. I just want the connection when I want it, not when it's beneficial for other people too. So the internet and social media has changed how we perceive relationships. Communicate,
yeah.
How we value people. Like, the value of a human life has dropped tremendously with social media.
Dictate by their followers now.
Yeah. If you don't have, I'm hear this sometimes from girls. I'll only date you if you have less than 200 followers. If you have more than 500 followers.
What?
Yeah, like, I hear that type of stuff, and I'm like,
what?
how? Well, because if you have more than 1,000 followers, then you're just out there all the time with everybody. Like, so I need somebody who only has 200 followers, because I know they're not doing anything.
That's just that's just like a judgment before you even know the person. It's like you don't even give a person a chance because of that. It's like an external thing, I think.
Oh, yeah. It's external in one way, but it's internal in another way, right? Because it reveals a pride about somebody. It reveals I need to, you can't make me feel a certain type of way. So that's their own pride taking over. And that pride is causing them to...
I mean, it's kind of like celebrities, if you think about it. Like, how many celebrities only date other celebrities? They won't date, like... They won't date a normal guy, or they won't even date, like, somebody on the film crew. It's like, no, I have to... If you ain't another celebrity, you know? It's kind of like that.
Absolutely. So... what they call them, socio-economical statuses. Like, if you don't fit in our class, then you can't. You can't sit at our table. You're not cool. It's back to elementary school. Like, you're not cool enough to sit at our table. So,
oh yeah.
Like, it's that type of childish mentality, rather than valuing somebody for who they are. What are your core characteristics? What are your morals? What are the things that you hold dearest to you? You know, those are things that, for me, makes someone another human being.
Opposed to the status.
Yeah, like,
yeah.
And don't get me wrong, the status is nice. Like, we all like to have nice things, but if those nice things are what's validating you more than how you conduct yourself, that's where I see the problem.
Yeah, exactly. I think, like me, for example, my goal, I always tell everybody, my goal with this podcast is to just keep doing it until I get to top 100 charts.
Nice.
And then that's my goal. Yeah. But then when I get there, I'm not going to stop, you know, and then that's going to come with some sort of status. But I think that's your point. You have to have a balance of, even if you did have status, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to disregard people that aren't on the same status level of you, you know? And I think that's where it gets, like, confusing, because it's like, oh, you don't have 1 million followers, why should I even talk to you, type of thing, you know? Yeah. And I think that's just another problem that social media influencers have to deal with. And that's a big problem with fame too. You've heard stories, famous people committing suicide. Robin Williams, the Nirvana singer.
Ellen's DJ,
it's like,
was one of
once you reach a certain level of fame or something, it's like you have to find that balance within yourself, because if you get to that fame without finding that balance within yourself, you could start to lose yourself in the fame. You could start to lose your identity, start questioning who you are, because you have so many people watching you. It's hard to figure who the hell you are when everybody else is like commenting or just all online and saying who you are or what you should be or how you should portray yourself to the internet.
You know, you bring up a good point, because in order to achieve something, I'm a firm believer that you need to become a person who can achieve it, right? Like, you got to become the person who can hit the top 100, right? You got to become that type of individual. For me, it's to be the #1 speaker in the Southwest and then in the nation on substances and recovery. So I got to become an individual that can meet that standard, right? What you just said, though, brings to mind that when certain individuals get into those statuses, whatever that status class is, they start unbecoming. Like, they stop trusting themselves. They start unbecoming who they are because they get so many comments about who they are.
Because they have so many external factors. Yeah.
So they unbecome who they are that got them to that place. And when that happens, that's where we see them spiral out of control. and I can relate totally to all of that stuff, because on top of like the other stuff that I shared earlier, I was a decent academic in school. I had a full ride wrestling scholarship that I gave away. Like, there was things that I had become.
Yeah.
And because of all the external voices, I wanted to unbecome that version of myself and become something that I created, right? So that's a mind hack right there. Are you unbecoming?
It's hard because you have to. I think it's about remembering where you came from and being humble in the process of reaching that status. Because it's like, okay, I reached the status, I got the 100 charts, I got the #1 speaker, but then you have to not lose yourself in who you did become and remember your humble beginnings of what got you there to even start on this path. Because then if you don't, and if you disregard those humble beginnings and you just embrace the full becoming of this new you, you know, you could lose yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that reminds me of what some of the greats say, like, keep on doing what got you to that spot. Like, if you look at all the athletes that became great, well, they kept it to the fundamentals. They kept on doing the same things that got them to that spot. What are the things that took you to the top 100 charts? What are the things that took you to the #1 speaker? Are you still doing those, or do you think that those are beneath you? Like, that's where I think it really can be a fork in the road for individuals, because people.
Yeah, I heard. From another podcast, it was like the CEO of like some Fortune 500 company, and he was like saying that same thing. He was like, sometimes you do have to remember where you came from, even though you're like this successful whatever millionaire CEO. Sometimes you do have to go and take the trash out or clean your office and do the I guess like grunt work or whatever, to remember where you came from.
Yeah, I think that's a portion of that status, is that you have so many people doing it for you that you forget what it's like to do it, right? Like, forget what it's like to scrub a toilet. Everybody's had to scrub a toilet in their life at some point in time, right? Like, if you've lived on your own, you've had to scrub your own toilet. So, like, when you forget how to scrub a toilet, that's when you start losing.
You take it for granted. You don't. He's like, that's beneath me. Like, why should I do that? You know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a solid.
But so we got kind of off track, but it's a good topic. But so after you had that moment and you started getting better and going through detox, how long did it take you to like finally just be like, to let it go? Like, I don't need this anymore. Like, are you sober right now? Like, or do you still do it occasionally, but you can control it? Or like where are you now from that moment where you started to recover?
I got you. From the moment that I started to recover, it probably took me a solid year to completely wash my brain of even just the thought that I needed it, right? To rewire my brain into a place that's not something that you need, it's not an option, took me about a year. Because when I made that decision, it was instant, but to get to the point to make that decision, it took about a year to release all of the excuses that could lead me back, right? Like, making a decision's instant, but eliminating every option for yourself. Like, in my head, I went through this thought process of, well, what happens when someone close to you dies? How are you going to react then? Like, are you going to use that as an excuse? What happens?
The coping, yeah.
What happens when you have to figure out these huge moments in time? How are you going to deal with that? Because if you don't have a plan for it now, then when those happen, you're screwed. You're going to be right back here in this same spot.
You're going to fall back, yeah.
Exactly. So it took me about a year to come up with that decision making, like going back and forth of like, nah, it's can be okay. Eventually you could drink again. No, I can't. Like me personally, I can't. And I lost the ability to walk. Part of my
what?
Yeah, part of my consequences, because I didn't go to jail. I never went to rehab. Like, I didn't catch any DWIs. Didn't catch any cases like that. I don't have some of the traditional consequences of drinking that people could think of. But what happened is the amount of time that I spent using heroin, the amount of time that I spent drinking, my hips collapsed. And because my hips collapsed, I lost the ability to walk from age 28 to 31. I could walk, but I couldn't climb steps. Couldn't. It hurt to sit down, use the restroom. Could barely lift my knees up. And so that was part of my consequences. And that was another moment where I was just like, all right, you know what? This is what you have to deal with. So to answer your question directly, it took me about a year to make that decision. You had asked if I'm sober. Absolutely. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I went as far as eliminating coffee out of my life, because that's how, for me, it became like I can't do anything until I have my coffee. And in my head, that's an addiction.
I'm trying to cut that right now.
Yeah. So all of that stuff.
Well, just caffeine. Yeah.
Yeah. And caffeine's a drug in itself, right? So I don't drink any. Originally, it was used as a painkiller, is what most people don't know. Caffeine back in the day was a painkiller.
Oh, that's crazy.
So I cut all of that stuff out of my life. Drink water. I eat the same things every day. So yeah, absolutely, 100% sober. I do my best not even to eat sugar, because that's another addiction that people struggle with and that kills our bodies. So I do my best not to eat.
No, sugar, yeah. Sugar, a lot of people don't know sugar is like the leading cause of cancer. Like you don't realize it, but there's so many books and research on like how sugar, basically like if you have cancer cells, sugar like is beneficial to the cancer cells.
One of their fuels.
So if you cut it out, it won't help the cancer grow if you do have like dormant cancer cells.
Yeah. So yeah, completely sober. And in that time frame, I did some of my work. So I ended up writing a book that went to a best-selling book about helping people get clean. Because I was like, well, now I've been trying to get clean since I was 15, 16 years old. So I know all the steps. I've been to therapies. I've been to counselors. Like, I understand it well enough.
Did you ever go to rehab?
No rehab. I was too stubborn for rehab, man.
You didn't?
Yeah.
Really?
So no rehab, no jail. I really just locked myself up. And the way that I stopped was I cut my drinking in half. So like the first week that I wanted to quit drinking, instead of telling myself no alcohol, because that put me in the hospital, I was just like, all right, just have a bottle a day. Keeps the shakes away.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. And then after I did a bottle a day, I cut it to half a bottle a day. And then from half a bottle a day, I cut it down to a pint. And from a pint, I cut it down to half a pint a day. And at that point, I was just like, you don't even need it.
Like a shot.
Yeah. Your body doesn't need it. It's a mental thing at this point. So can you go a full 24 hours without alcohol? When I did that first 24 hours, I was like, well, if I can do 24 hours, then I can do a whole week. So let me get a whole weekend. And then after I got a whole weekend, I was just like, well, if you can do a whole week, you can do a whole month. You know?
If you could do a whole month, you could do your whole rest of your life.
You just don't think about it at that point, right? Like, if you start off thinking I got to do this for the rest of my life, you're screwed. That's what most people get.
It's like,
You think about that's why a lot of the programs, they say just for today. They want you to just focus on today, because that's easier than, for the next 10 years I could never have a drink. Next 10 years I could never get high again. Like, that's scary for a lot of individuals, because that's the solution.
I think, yeah, because they hold so much value in that as a solution that it's scary to even think about, because it's like, oh, what am I going to do when this happens? I don't have a solution for. So it's like, yeah, it's scary to think about that, but then you have to think about finding that solution within yourself and not external factors.
Yeah. And you have to replace it. Like, if you just try to cut off one habit without replacing it with another habit, then you're screwed. So I had to replace the habit.
What did you replace it with?
Well, when I couldn't walk, I replaced it with writing. So that's why I wrote the book.
Okay.
And then when I stopped, when I could walk, I ended up getting both my hips replaced. And when I got that opportunity, I started to replace the writing. On top of the writing, I started exercising. So I started to work out more. And that was very helpful and very beneficial. I like to take walks, mainly because there was a time that I couldn't walk. So I go and take walks.
You're grateful, yeah.
When something gets taken away from you, that's when you realize the value.
That's when you really, you're really grateful for it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so that's kind of how it changed. I started to just fill my time with things. I was like, well, what are some of the things that you regret not doing? I shared with you earlier that I had a full ride wrestling scholarship. It wasn't that I wanted to go back and wrestle, but I figured, why not get a degree still? Like, that's the one thing that you were going to go get. So I went and got me a degree. Completed that. I was like, shoot, man, I'm still an addict, because when I put my mind to something, I get it done. Like,
you get addicted to that process of doing things.
Absolutely.
I think that's a healthy addiction, though. You know, there's like healthy addictions and healthy obsessions. I feel like if you're addicted to something healthy, it's not as bad. Like, it can get bad. Like, there's documentaries of bodybuilders that are addicted to bodybuilding, and it's like there comes a point where it does get bad, even though like lifting weights and working out is healthy. I don't know, it's just there's always some sort of balance when it comes to those things.
Yeah, I used to get it.
I think
absolutely. My grandmother used to tell me a phrase, and it was "too much, no good." Like, and if you think about it, that's true. Too much water, it's no good for you. You could kill yourself. If you spend too much time with somebody, that's not good enough for you. That's not good for you, because then you lose who you are. If
it's taken away from you,
if you're into bodybuilding, too much of getting bigger and bigger turns people to what? Performance enhancing drugs. You know what I'm saying? Like, I could get bigger if I take these steroids. Like, too much of it is no good. So you have to know how. You gotta be grateful for the limitations that are around you. Physically, I can only get so big, right? Like, it's not my goal, but I can only get so big. Like, outside of that, you just start looking abnormal.
Yeah, I was the same. I was like, I've been trying to get big like ever since I started working out when I was like 14. And yeah, everybody's body has a limit, you know?
Yeah, and we gotta be grateful for those limits, because the limits keep us safe. What I've learned in my journey is that limitations and restrictions are actually freedom. That's where freedom comes from. Not being able to do whatever the heck you want to do. My tattoo artist, man, great guy, solid dude, and he spent some time in prison. And when he got out of prison, he said, Nico, like, I don't like people to tell me what to do. I don't like having restrictions, because I had so many of them, that now when I want to do something, I do it because I'm able to. And I was like, no, bro, restrictions are what make us free. Like, think about it. If you're in a relationship and you're free to go do whatever you want to do, then you're just going to go have all kinds of relations with all kinds of people.
Promiscuous and sleeping with multiple people.
That's not freedom. That's hurting yourself. That's not freedom. Freedom is knowing, look, I really enjoy this one person, so my limitations is I'm only going to share myself with this one person, emotionally, physically, spiritually, however you want to look at it. Limitations with food. Like, a lot of people don't understand that portion.
Yeah, you're not gonna just eat until you fucking. I always tell my kids, because it's funny. We watch this movie, like, man, we watched this movie so many times. It's called Spirited Away. And in one of the scenes, it's like an anime movie. In one of the scenes, their parents, there's this like buffet that they see, and her parents just start digging in, and then eventually they turn into pigs. Like, legit, they turn into pigs, and it's like what is going on? And then that was like a representation of like gluttony, and like you're gonna turn into a pig if you are too much of a glutton.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So limitations are the actual true freedom, even with money. Some people say, well, I need X amount of dollars. The reality is, the 1% of the top 1%, they only earn $650,000. Like, that's what makes them in the 1%. So what is that number that you need to hit to be secure enough for yourself, right? Like, if you don't have that, you don't have that limitation, then you're never going to be free from the bondage of earning money. You got to know how much it costs to be you, and when you know the cost to be you, and when you can meet that cost plus a surplus for whatever savings you want, then that's when you're truly financially free. Like, you could do the things that you want to do. So limitations and restrictions are actually,
because if you always look at it, because if you always look at it as like, I need more, you know, it's like when is the end point to that, you know? And then why do you need more, you know? Like, do you just want to show off, or like, what is that reason for always wanting more? For me, at least, it's just to travel more. That's it. Like, to travel more, to invest in like in things that matter to me more. It's definitely not like materialistic things and for validation. For me, at least.
Yeah, and everybody has the right to define what that is for them, right? Like, for you, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I won't lie, man. I like nice things, so I want to have a nice coupe, like a nice car that I get to drive around in. I want to have a nice ass Suburban for when I have a family. The family gets to drive around in, right? So that, in my head, that's enough right there. I'd like to have a house for me and my family, but I'd also like to have properties that pay for that house. You know what I'm saying? So like, there's.
Yeah, it's I don't know if you've ever read I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi, but he explains like, I will teach you to be rich, like a rich life, not necessarily like rich like millionaire, but to make the most of what you have and to reach that financial freedom, to live a rich life, to put the money in things that matter to you more than the things that don't matter to you.
Absolutely. And that's where you got to have your own restrictions. We live in a country, me and you at least live in a country where you can go pretty much do whatever you want to do. So if you have that much freedom, like, that's where people get in trouble. That's why we have prisons full of people, because, well, I could do whatever I wanted to do, and I wanted more. Or they didn't have any type of restrictions, so they had to go into a very restricted place. Restrictions and limitations are what makes people actually free.
And if you think about it, jail is actually like a scapegoat to homelessness.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're homeless and you want to live a good life, go do some crime and get some, and you'll be fed every day. You'll be sheltered. If you're homeless, like, just go rob a bank or something. You'll have a bed. You have 3 meals a day.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And even those homeless people, they don't have any restrictions on themselves, so that's why they are homeless. Like, they don't have any limitations. They don't have any standards that they won't go below. Because limitations isn't just going far, right? Limitations are, what am I never going to go below either. My life will never hit below this point. and so they don't even have limitations for themselves. So it's the same thing. Limits and standards are what makes you truly free. And if you can set those for yourself and not let someone else set them for you, then that's truly creating your own freedom. Like, it doesn't matter what the Joneses have. What do you have that'll define your freedom? And if you can meet that, then guess what? People will love you, and people will be attracted to that, and they'll want to know, well, what is it that you have? I don't know. Have you ever heard the story of how Alexander the Great got taken out?
Yeah, he left his hand on the casket, and he like buried all his money or something.
Maybe something like that. I heard a different story where he saw some other guy who was just happy. The guy just lived in a normal home. He was like a monk of that time. I don't know what it was exactly. But he's like, I want what you have. And so the monk tells him, all right, carry this dead fish around for 3 days. And Alexander the Great was like, what? Do you know who I am? Like, do you know what I have? You want me to walk around with just a dead fish in my hand for 3 days? And the monk was like, yeah. And it drove him crazy to the point where he was like, well, nah, I can't do this. I'm such and such. He didn't have the limitations on who he was. The monk did. The monk was like, I have my own limitation of how other people can see me. You don't. Like, you have to be seen in a certain way by everybody. There's no limits for you.
So you have so that external validation
killed them
about how you're seen, like that status.
Yeah. I know.
But no, I found it. He said his dying wish. Alexander the Great said, his dying wishes were, my physicians and doctors alone must carry my coffin. I desire that when my coffin is transported to my grave, that the path leading to my grave shall be all the wealth I've collected over the years on the ground. And my third and last dying wish is that both of my hands hang out of the coffin.
I wonder if he could touch
No, the whole story behind that was that no matter how great you are and who you are, when you die, you die. It's done. Like, none of that matters anymore when you're dead. And that's what that his dying wishes were about. Was like, on his deathbed, he realized that none of this really matters, and let me show it to you by when I'm dying. These are my doctors that are holding me. They couldn't make me live forever. This is my wealth that doesn't matter anymore because I'm dead, you know? So that was that whole story of his dying wishes. Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you don't even know if they're going to do it for you or not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So that was the whole point. It's like, I'm dead, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. So how free are you going to be until you die? That's kind of my big thing.
Right?
How free can I be until I die? Because if I can remove some of the barriers that blocked me, some of the things that I thought created freedom from my next generation, then that just means that they start off a little bit more free than I started off. They're going to have their own problems. Like, everybody's going to have their own problems.
Oh, yeah.
If I can start them off with less made up restrictions in their head of what's going to actually be free, then that would be the best thing.
No, I mean, I think that's what, life is ultimately about, to be honest. I think it's about finding that freedom in a sense where you're free in your mind, you're free physically to what you want to do, and you're free to do something that you can survive, make a living off of, and eventually just live a fully happy, fulfilled life. Which brings me to the question that I did want to ask you about one of your posts on social media. You're saying happiness is and earned concept. Happiness is earned, not deserved.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's your take on that?
So we have a idea that the pursuit of happiness is what we're here to do, right? It's in our Constitution, at least mine and yours. The idea that you should be pursuing it is so flawed in my head. It's a earned thing. Happiness is something that you earn on a daily basis. And I don't mean like earning it like we earn money. I mean like earning it by validating who you are. So for me, the way that I create my own happiness, regardless of what's going to happen throughout the day, is did I make my wake up time? Because there's a specific time that I want to get up each and every day. Then did I do my normal practices in the morning? For me, that's reading the Bible, praying, and journaling. And did I do my workout today? And in my workout, did I knock that out as best as possible? And then the last one that I always look for is how can I serve someone else? How can I make someone else's life better? If I can do those things, then that's how I earn happiness for myself. I don't get happiness from, oh, somebody told me that I did a good job. Somebody says you look good. Somebody gave me a bonus. I got a new car. I got all these. No, happiness is earned by what you do for yourself. And when all the world is going to crap, when everything around you is coming down, you could still be happy if you validate yourself with your daily practices, whatever those practices are, right? They're different for everybody else. But that's where happiness is earned. It's not something that you deserve to get. You don't deserve happiness. You earn it. And you earn it by making a plan and completing that plan on a day-to-day basis, whatever that is for anybody.
So you mean like earning it for yourself? Or because I agree, because you don't really deserve happiness, because if you think about it, it's like the universe and people, and no one is like, oh, you deserve it, because nothing owes you anything. You're not owed happiness. It's like, so you do have to earn it. And I think when it comes down to it, you have to think about your, like you said, your day-to-day plan. And I think that's that duty that you give to yourself, and then that willingness to be selfless as well. And I think those concepts are more valuable to your day-to-day life than trying to find happiness every day.
Absolutely. Because that finding happiness that you just said, it's always going to be changing. You're always going to need more.
It's like a cycle. Yeah.
More. Whatever made you happy yesterday, you're going to think you need more of that today. And in my head, you are a new person each and every day that you wake up, because you have new experiences that you just experienced that day before. So for most people, if you're getting new experiences and you're being around new things, even if you're thinking differently, then you wake up as a new person. So what made you happy yesterday might not make you happy today.
Yeah, because we're constantly evolving, developing, changing as a human being and growing. So yeah, I agree. I don't think you deserve happiness. And what is your take on people who think if they're worthy of happiness? Like, am I worthy of it?
That's a deep question there, Thomas. I believe, my own perspective, that your self-worth is determined by the work that you put into yourself. So, like, it goes into, I believe people are three different parts made into one, right? You got a spirit, you got a mind, like logical mind, and then you got a body. So with those three portions, depending on where you believe your spirit came from, that can create your self-worth. And if you use that one, cool, then yes, whoever your creator is, then you are worthy enough to be created, so then you're worthy enough for happiness. Like, somebody gives you a gift, and for me, breath, day is a gift. They want you to enjoy it. They want you to be happy.
Yeah.
From it. So that's the way kind of I look at it.
Life is a gift.
Life is a gift.
Yeah.
How you use it, just by getting life, you're worthy of happiness. Now, what you determine that happiness to be is your decision, and that's where that logical mind and things go into play.
The choice of the between the body and the mind. Yeah.
Now, what are you gonna please? Your body?
Yeah, because I agree. Yeah, I agree, because I think the best way to build confidence is to do the thing that you're afraid to do. If you can do the thing that you're afraid to do, and also be humble enough that you may suck in the beginning of it, but you're learning and you're growing every day and you're consistent and you show up every day, I think that's like the fastest way to build confidence. Because you're like, look at what I'm doing. I'm getting better. I'm developing. I'm humble. Like, and over time you start to see your growth. It's like, oh man, like this is where I started, and I've been consistent enough that I could see my growth, and you didn't give up on yourself.
Oh, absolutely. I was thinking about that the other day. I got mad at myself because I had an extra snack in a day. I'm very like consistent on my food intake, right? And I got mad at myself because I broke and I had an extra snack in the day.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn fool, you're mad at yourself about that. You used to get mad at yourself for drinking more than a bottle. You used to get mad at yourself for shooting up heroin. Like, look how far you've come, that this is what bothers you now about who you are. So it's exactly what you said, because of that development, that developmental process, you build that confidence about yourself. Like, the things that once took you out, the things that once scared you no longer do, and to be able to walk with that confidence. Mm-hmm. I think, for me, I think that's what's most attractive to other people, right? Not in a sexual way, but just like, yo, I like that dude, or yo, that person.
It's I don't know how to say it. You attract people that you want to that are on the same like wavelength that you want to portray. Yeah, it's not like necessarily like I'm attractive, but you attract people that you want to attract in your life. It's like the law of attraction or whatever.
Yeah. And we all function at a certain wavelength mentally, right? And what we can pick up on is other people who are on that same wavelength. So when I'm around individuals that, like, I'm like, dude, you've overcome a lot. Like, even with you sharing that you have that situation going on with your twin's mother, to me, I'm like, dude, in my head, I don't know how to deal with that type of stuff. So I see that as something very confidence building, right? Cause,
and adversity.
Yeah. And that type of adversity, like, I give kudos to anybody. The lady at the gym who's in there and she's just on her first 2 weeks, like, kudos to you, because you're at the best portion of it. Like, you got so much to grow.
Yeah.
That type of adversity that you came into and you're facing, and now you're overcoming, raising twins.
Yeah.
Like, that's mind-blowing, man. That's adverse in its own. Not just having a kid, but...
Oh, man, yeah. Yeah, and I'm by myself like 90% of the time, man. So
that type of stuff is...
Yeah.
I fuck with people like that. Because it doesn't have to be the drug addict. Like, I'm like, yeah, we could compare receipts, and I guarantee you I did more than you did. Like, I guarantee against most drug addicts, I've done more than you have. Like, so to me, that's not impressive. But individuals who have, like you just said, single father of twins, bro.
Other adversities that you haven't necessarily experienced. Yeah.
And sharing that because there's common language amongst it.
So what's this whole thing about your Snickers?
Oh, my Snickers? I eat a Snickers upside down, bro. It's the best way to eat a Snickers. Yeah.
Wait, what do you mean upside down?
So the granola side first.
Not the nougat side?
Oh, the nougat. There you go. The bread.
Wait. What? So, isn't the creamy part is the nougat?
Yeah. I call it granola. Like.
So you eat the creamy part?
Yeah.
Okay.
I eat that first.
And you just flip it like that, like horizontally?
Yeah. Just like corn on top. And I just eat it.
Oh. Okay.
And then I save all the caramel and the peanuts.
Do you still eat Snickers?
What's that?
Do you still eat Snickers?
No.
But that's how you used to eat it.
And if I treat myself, bro, that's how I treat myself, is with the Snickers and the Reese's. Those are like my treats now. And so when I do, I'm like, let me get all this creamy stuff out of the way so I can just enjoy all the caramel. I love caramel. So caramel and peanuts, like just eating that together. The creamy stuff to me is just like vegetables.
I don't even have like a big sweet tooth, to be honest. Like I don't really get cravings for sweets. It's weird. Like I'll eat sweets every now and again, but it's like I never really like, man, I just want a chocolate bar or something. But
my brain does that.
Go ahead.
My brain does that as one of the solutions that it still thinks is an option.
Like craving sweets.
Yeah. Like when I'm going through stressful situations, my brain automatically goes to sweets.
Oh wow. Because I think it's like that reward system. It's like, man, this is so good. Like, but I'm gonna lead into my final questions, and then we can go from there. We kind of touched on this question a little bit earlier, but what is your biggest regret?
I think my biggest regret is not listening to my conscience earlier. And numbing and silencing my conscience at an early age. Because I started numbing and silencing my conscience when I was in my early teens. So that would probably be my only regret. And now having to retrain myself to trust my conscience, trust myself, this is all stuff that I probably should do at a way earlier stage in life.
Like that self-awareness.
Yeah, that'd be about the only regret. All the stuff that I went through, ain't no big deal, bro. That's what made me who I am today. So I can't regret any of that, but definitely can regret not listening to my conscience earlier.
Okay. Who or what has made the biggest impact in your life that makes you who you are?
What, I guess, would be what it is, and what is a relationship with my Creator. For me, my Creator is Jesus. And so that relationship is what has made the biggest impact in my life. That's the first one. If we're talking who's on a practical level, there's this guy named E.T., Eric Thomas, the hip-hop preacher. He's been a phenomenal...
Dr.
E.T., yeah.
You know, I was going to say that earlier when you said you wanted to be the number one speaker in that, like, field. That reminded me of E.T. I listen to him whenever I want someone to scream at me.
Yeah, man. I've had the pleasure of meeting him.
Well, like, man, I just need that screaming. Like, it's because most of the times I just listen to, like, motivational, like regular motivational speeches, or, like, David Goggins or Tony Robbins, or, like, old school speakers like Jim Rohn, or like, old school stuff. But whenever I'm, like, in the mood for, like, someone to just fucking chew me out, he always has that saying, he's like, you're the lion or something, or the gazelle.
Which one are you going to be?
You probably heard of it.
The gazelle. Which one is
it? Yeah.
Yeah. I've actually been trained by him to speak, so that was a cool accomplishment.
Oh, wow. You met him?
Met him. I got a good relationship with a couple of people in his team. So it's.
Oh wow.
That's cool. But that's a who.
You're doing it, man.
The other who that's recently popped up, and if you do need an extra person to scream at you, his name's Wes Watson. I don't know if you heard of him.
It sounds familiar.
He's an intense, direct individual, and I've recently been studying underneath him.
Have you heard of the African American preacher? I forget his name. He's a very inspirational preacher, and he always uses like the verses in the Bible, and then he speaks his own thoughts on that. That's very inspiring. I forget his name. I'll send it to you after this, but he's a really good one as well. And Les Brown. You probably heard of Les Brown.
Yeah. Gotta be hungry. Gotta stay hungry.
Yeah, they're all good, yeah. They're all good because they have their own stories, you know? They have their own stories of humble beginnings that brought them to their versions of success.
So those are two who's that have been very impactful on a practical level, like listening to them, studying from them, taking programs. Those would be two who's.
All right, next question is, what is one lesson that you learned the hard way?
A lesson that I learned the hard way. You gotta trust yourself. Like, I learned that the hard way. There's a inner voice that you have. All of us have it. And you gotta learn to trust that inner voice. And because I didn't trust that inner voice and I trusted outside voices, I went through a lot of hard times. A lot of different hard times. Again, grateful for them. They sucked. They were hurt. They traumatic. All of that. But trusting myself, learning to trust myself, I learned the hard way.
That's a good one. Because it takes a lot for us to trust ourselves, to be honest. When I think about trusting myself, I think about my intuition. Like, when was the times where I should have listened to my intuition or that gut feeling, but I didn't? And then I look back at it and it's like, yeah, I regret doing that.
Yeah, intuition is
that's a good one.
And that I learned the hard way.
Yeah.
I learned it. Hurt, bro. Hurt. There's plenty of stories I can tell you when I should have listened and I
didn't. Yeah. Next question is, what would you want to experience in life if time and money was not an issue?
Live on all 7 continents.
Really?
Except for Antarctica. I ain't trying to live in the cold. Like, skip out on that.
Well, Antarctica is like, actually did a rabbit hole research in Antarctica, and it's owned by, Antarctica isn't its own country. It's owned by the higher governmental powers. Each the highest powers own a piece of Antarctica, and there's so many laws and regulations that to even visit there's so many conspiracy theories on it, man.
Yeah, I ain't trying to visit there, but everywhere else I'd love to live. Asia, Africa, I've already hit Northern America, Europe. I just think it'd be cool to be able to say that I lived on all continents. And if time and money isn't an issue, I'd like to have kids on all continents. In my head, I think that'd be cool.
Different kids?
Yeah, different kids. One kid born on each continent.
Different kids and different ethnicities, or different kids are the same?
Nah, different ethnicities. Like, I'm taking it back to the old school.
Like, all different.
Yeah, all different. Like, have a wife, and like, if time and money and all that stuff isn't an issue, no problem. Let me have a wife on each continent and have a kid on
all shapes, sizes, and colors.
Yeah, man. See which one's gonna do the best.
Nah, I like that mindset, because I'm a big proponent of like family as well, and I wouldn't mind having a big family if time and money wasn't an issue as well. I wouldn't mind having 10 plus kids.
Absolutely, because then you could teach them. Like, in my head, that's where time factors in. I could teach each one of them a certain thing, like, and let them go.
And then their own like background or biology, nature versus nurture, they become their own person.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. But the psychological, the theological, all that,
like the foundation.
I want to teach that to them and let them roll.
Yeah. Now that's the struggle with being a parent, man. It's the nature versus nurture, because at home you're the leader, but whenever they go out into the world, they have all these different influences in school, their friends, their teachers, people they're around. So it's like they become like, they're not just listening to you, but they have all these other factors in play. But yeah. Final question is there any last final personal insights in your journey of discovering yourself that you'd like to resonate with the audience?
We hit on it a little bit earlier, but it's, don't try to be perfect.
Yeah.
Just be better today than you were yesterday. It's the only insight that I ever try to impress on anybody. Is I don't know what your world is like. I have no clue. But I know that what's helped me out in my world is that not being perfect and being better than I was yesterday is it's all that anybody should be trying to do. And that's in whatever realm you want to call it. For me, I have 5 different areas that I kind of look at each day. But can I be better today than I was yesterday? And if you can do that, man, you should be able to take off.
Nah, I live the same kind of motto. I don't strive for perfection. I strive for showing up. That's my inner voice, inner critic, is, did I even show up today? Did I take one step towards whatever goal I have, whatever thing I'm trying to accomplish? Did I even take one step, or did I even show up? And it's not about being perfect, but to me it's about showing up and getting something done that is meaningful to me, you know.
And that's what it is, man. If we could be better today than we were yesterday, that's the one thing that I want to impress on anybody. Because if this old heroin addict, old alcoholic dude who has 2 hip replacements can, in 6 years, write a best-selling book, get a degree, and open up his own personal development business, like, why can't you be a little bit better today in whatever realm it is that you're trying to deal with?
Yeah, man, you gotta remember where you came from, and that to not play the victim of your circumstances, and know that you can be better every day.
That'd be the one impression that sticks with.
Well, thank you, man. Thank you, Nico, for coming on, sharing your message. Is there anything you'd like to promote or shout out?
Yeah, man, go follow me on social media, No Halo NM. That's on all platforms. If you are looking for someone to help coach you to your definition of success, that's one of my specialties. I've been coaching since like the past 10 years. So if you need help there, I got you. Or if you just need somebody to talk to, hit me up. I love talking to people.
All right, guys. Go check them out, and thank you for listening. And don't forget to share any personal insights that you found on social media. And as always, guys, stay curious. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.